Hey everybody, how you doing? IntoWeapons back again with you. Wanted to do a quick video today on the takedown of the GSG AK-47 and 22 long rifle. A lot of you had commented on my previous range video that you were interested to see if the internals were similar to an AK-47 or an AKM. It's actually not, and the takedown is very different as well. So thought I would piece together a quick video on how to do this. I'm just going to kind of sequence each step out, that way I'm not taking up a huge long amount of time with the disassembly process. So it'll just be more of a piecemeal type disassembly video. Really the only thing you need to disassemble this gun is the tool itself that comes with it, and as you can see it's got the GSG AK-47 listed on there. But it's just a handle, and inside the handle, if you unscrew the top of it, it comes with a few different tools here. We have a flathead screwdriver, we have a Phillips head screwdriver, we have kind of a prong tool type looking thing, and I'll show you what that's for. And then we also have just a hex key type attachment there. So four keys, and that'll disassemble the entire gun for you. You do need to have some of these tools in order to take this gun apart. So again, not like an AK-47 where you really don't need any tools, you just pop everything apart. This one is a little bit different. So we'll go ahead and get started here, guys. The first step with any disassembly process is making sure that the magazine is unloaded and clear. So we'll go ahead and just remove the magazine. We'll go ahead and check that the action's clear. This particular rifle does require that you decock the firearm prior to disassembling the gun. So this one does have a magazine safety in here, so the magazine does need to be inserted in order for this thing to be fired. So we'll go ahead and insert that. We know that it's clear. We'll go ahead and pull the trigger, and we'll decock it. At this point then, we can go ahead and remove our magazine. Obviously you don't want to clear the chamber again because that's going to cock the action in there, and we'll go on to the next step. Alright guys, so the next step here is taking this tool and adding on your Phillips head attachment. We're going to go ahead and remove the stock off the firearm with the bottom screw here on this tang and the top screw on this tang. That's pretty self-explanatory. These screws aren't difficult to get out or hard to find, so pretty straightforward. We'll just go ahead and remove this screw, and then we'll go to flip it over and we'll remove the screw on the bottom. And what I would recommend doing for this particular firearm is finding a little bin that you can use for parts. And I just use one of my trays that I'm not using out of my hardware tray, and I'll just throw the parts in there. At that point you can see the stock comes right off, and we'll move on to the second. Next we'll go ahead and remove the dust cover just by depressing this lever back here and lifting it up and off. That's very standard, or very similar to a standard AKM. And as you can see, the internals are a bit different in there. You don't have a fire control group like you would with a standard AK-47. You really just have kind of a block in here that handles all of the mechanisms and holds everything in place there, so you can see that you don't get to that fire control group like you normally would. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next step. Alright, so now we're going to remove the rear adapter here, and how we do that is use the hex insert there, the Allen key, whatever you want to call it. We'll go ahead and remove the bolt that's in the back of this receiver here. And that comes out fairly easily. And once you have that off, you should be able to remove this adapter just by pulling it straight off like that. After we remove the adapter, you'll notice that the spring here, which holds that dust cover in place, does come loose. So we'll go ahead and just pull this off, and that spring that's in here is loose as well. So just make sure you don't lose that. They do come apart. We'll go ahead and put that in our parts bin. Next we're going to go ahead and remove the receiver block in the back of this gun, which holds all the bolt and everything in here, the mechanisms. We'll need the hex key again here. We'll go ahead and remove the bolt that you'll see in the back here. We'll go ahead and remove that off. Out. Mine was a little bit tight. Should come out pretty easily though. Go ahead and back that out, and there's that screw there. We'll go ahead and set that aside. Once that bolt is removed, this rear receiver block, we'll go ahead and lift right out of the receiver here just by pushing it upwards. You'll see it sliding free. We'll go ahead and lift that completely out, and that'll allow us to get into the block as well as the firing mechanism. What we're going to do now is turn the gun upside down, and we're going to remove the fire control group and the firing mechanism here. And what we're going to do is just slide it rearward, which should go ahead and allow it to get loose, and you can lift the entire control assembly out of there. And you'll notice this comes out as one piece. You have everything in here that you need. One thing I do want to make note of is right here there's a spring, and there's not much holding that spring in. When I first took this apart, the spring was just loose, so it does pop out of there, and I had to figure out where that went back into, which was a little difficult, but did find it, and you just kind of push it back into the spot there, and I believe that operates your magazine safety, if I'm not mistaken. So I really don't take it down further as far as the fire control group. We'll go ahead and set this aside. Next, we'll go ahead and remove the bolt system here, and essentially how we do that is just pull it backwards and right out of the receiver. And this is the entire bolt system, and striker assembly, all that good stuff. Okay, so typically that would be the full disassembly of this gun as far as you'd really want to take it for cleaning. I'm going to go ahead and do a few extra steps just to show you some further disassembly steps that you can take. And again, these aren't really needed for any kind of cleaning uses or anything like that. So just more of informational. The rifle does come with an extra bag of parts and pieces here, and inside that bag is a kind of a wrench type looking thing like this, and this does remove the muzzle. So we'll go ahead and fasten that on here, and we'll go ahead and just loosen that, and the muzzle will go ahead and come right off, the muzzle nut I should say. It is threaded. The muzzle nut itself is threaded, and as you can see the barrel shroud more or less is tapped, because there is the covering that you see here is just a covering for the actual barrel, which is inside that shroud. And the instructions do mention something about replacing it with another muzzle brake, but I don't really see how that's a possibility, but I really hadn't looked into it that much. We'll go ahead and remove the cleaning rod here. Just get that out of the way just by unscrewing it. It's kind of nice that a gun like this actually comes with a cleaning rod. It makes it look more authentic. Plus it is usable. They do recommend that you use this for cleaning the firearm, although I typically use my own guide rods and bore snakes. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and remove the fake gas system here on the top of this rifle, and this doesn't operate the rifle in any way. It's more cosmetic than anything. It does have a lever here on the right side of the rear sight that does release the gas tube here, but that is not all that is required to remove this like a standard ACAM. There is a set screw in the front of this fake gas block that does need to be unscrewed about a quarter of the way, so we'll go ahead and do that real quick. I do use a standard flathead screwdriver just because you have a little bit more room to get in here and get this screw undone. But we'll go ahead and unscrew that a quarter of the way. Look a little bit like that right there. And at that point then, once this lever is up, you should be able to lift your wood handguard up and off. As you can see there, a nice wood handguard with a bracket. Go ahead and set that aside. At that point also, you should be able to remove this fake gas piston tube, I should say. Set that aside. And you know, it looks pretty standard to a regular ACAM if you look at it with that stuff off. Again, it's just more fake, it's cosmetic than anything. So, to remove the lower handguard, we do have to go back into the secondary bag of supplies that they have and pull out our Allen wrench. And there's a little set screw on the top of the lower bracket here, hand bracket, which we'll go ahead and remove, or loosen I should say. I don't think we want to remove it against a set screw. And once that's loosened, you should be able to, I'm going to have to go a little bit more with it. It actually did come all the way out. And at this point we should be able to push that bracket forward, as you can see there, and wiggle out our lower handguard like that. That's our lower handguard. And now we have a fully disassembled GSG AK-47 and 22 long rifle. Reassembly is exactly the opposite, guys. I guess I'm really not going to waste time doing that as far as the additional takedown steps, but I will go ahead and put those pieces back on, and then I'll do a reassembly of the major takedown pieces. Okay, so I have the rifle put back to where we left off for the standard takedown or disassembly of this rifle. What we'll go ahead and do now is reassemble the rifle from that point. We'll start with the bolt mechanism. You should have that all cleaned up at this point. I do not at this point yet, so I'm always used to going in on the top of a rail like this and dropping in a bolt, but this actually goes in a little bit different. You'll notice in the back of the firearm there, just like we brought it out, we're going to put it back in just by sliding it in from the very rear using the rails on each side of the bolt system there. So we'll go ahead and slide that back into its original position. Our next step for reassembly is going to be putting in the fire control group, and again we're going to go in from the bottom of the rifle. We're going to start in the rear of the receiver. We're going to find little notches that it allows it to push down, fully seat all the way into the receiver like that, and then we're going to slide it forward, which kind of locks it into position more or less. It doesn't hold it very well, so make sure that it is in the fully seated position before we continue on. The next step is replacing our rear receiver block, which holds everything in place here. And if you guys remember, this thing just lifted right out, so more or less we're just going to drop it back in just like we had it. And we'll go ahead and slide it in there, and it should fit all the way down nice and secure and snugly into its original position. And then we'll go ahead and secure that using the bolt that we removed with our special tool that they provided. And we'll go ahead and screw that all the way down nice and tight. Until you can't tighten any longer. Our next step is to replace that spring and dust cover latch button, which is a little bit finicky being that it is loose parts. So what we do is just go ahead and slide it into the rails that is provided and not drop the spring down the receiver like I just did. Fortunately it came out pretty easily, but again another reason why you want to be a little bit more careful with these guys. What you probably want to do is go ahead and have the spring inside the button and then kind of replace it that way and just set it into place. There's nothing holding it in at that point, so just again make sure that you're kind of making mindful that you're not allowing it to fall out or out of position. Next we'll go ahead and replace the stock adapter in the rear of the receiver here, and it's this piece here that if you remember we took off, which holds the stock in place. There's two tangs. The lower tang will be the shorter one, and this will just fit right into the back of the receiver like that. It actually does hold your dust cover release button in place, so once you have this in place you shouldn't need to worry about the release button there. We'll go ahead and secure this stock adapter with the provided hex bolt that they have. We'll go ahead and just kind of fit that into where it needs to go, and then using the tool provided, lock that down. And make sure that one's in there nice and tight, because again this holds your stock in place, so you don't want that coming loose on you. And there you go. What we'll do next is replace the stock, and that's pretty easy. What we're going to do is just go ahead and come in from the bottom at an angle. Oops, I got it upside down. Come in from the bottom at an angle like that and rotate it inwards, and then we're just going to replace the two screws here, which I'll do off camera not to take up much time, but one lower tang, one upper tang. Pretty easy. Once you have the stock installed, what we can do is replace the dust cover. That goes on very similar to a regular AK-47. We'll go ahead and just kind of slip it into place where it sits, push down, let the dust cover button lock into place. That should be secure. At that point then you have your fully assembled GSG AK-47. Should be clear, should work. We'll go ahead and check the action. Of course, again, we have to have that magazine in there before it'll fire. You'll notice it fires, and we're set to go. I hope this helps somebody out. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, as always, I appreciate all you watching, and until next time, have a good one.